Hello, everybody, and welcome. Welcome to the 2022 Washington Weekend Dinner. We're so glad that you're joining us tonight here at the Cosmos Club. And I should say you're a historic event, our first in-person Washington Weekend and Dinner since 2019. And in 2019, we were also here in this very room to celebrate that year's class of fellows and their accomplishments. My name is Ann Peters, and I'm the University and Community Outreach Director. And it is so terrific to see all of you here this evening. Our program has grown since our very first class of fellows in 2009. There were 2. And now we have 54 in this year's program from our 40-plus partners. Our program also includes our postgraduate opportunities, our calls for specific topic-focused reporting, and special journalism programs and seminars, bringing even more issues to light through those articles, photography, and film. I want to thank my colleagues at the Pulitzer Center who have worked diligently to pull this weekend together for us and to support our reporters through all of their fellows through all of your reporting programs. And I want to recognize them and all of our Pulitzer Center staff who are here with us this evening. So if you will indulge me, please, if our Pulitzer Center staff could stand so that the rest of the folks in the room know who you are. I also want to thank our Campus Consortium partners, our advisory council members, our Pulitzer board members, our journalists, mentors, and other friends who are joining us here this evening. And I'm excited for all of you to connect with each other and with the reporting fellows, to hear more about those reporting projects and to share ideas with each other. Today we heard from 16 fellows on global health, climate and the environment, and labor and gender rights. And your work inspires me. Your reporting has highlighted so many different issues that I'm excited to learn more about, and your thinking on issues related to the work that you do as journalists are very inspirational. Tomorrow and Sunday, it will be time to hear from another 35 fellows who are with us this weekend. So that means we're a third of the way through our program, and I hope you will savor every moment you have together, get to know each other, learn from each other, and have a great time together. So I'll step away so you can spend more time speaking with each other, chatting at the tables, and remember, you are free to roam. You can go to another table and meet other people this evening if you want to start up other conversations, so please enjoy.
Good evening. I'm glad everyone's having such a good time. Good evening. And again, a warm welcome to everyone. Like Anne, I'd like to thank all of you for coming tonight to celebrate the 2022 Reporting Fellows and their work. Our fellows come from 40 universities, including schools of public health, community colleges, HBCUs, and journalism schools. I'd like to ask all of our fellows to please stand so you can be recognized. You've explored new territories in Guam and Ghana, in Pakistan and Cameroon, in Zimbabwe and Zambia. You were brave, you took risks, and you persevered. Some of you made new discoveries close to home or in places where you and your families were born. You reported on media literacy in Illinois, Wisconsin dairy farmers, Native education in South Dakota. You returned to India, to South Africa, to the Dominican Republic, to Mexico, looking for those stories that have long gone untold. I am so proud of each and every one of you. And I'm thrilled to be here with you in person, our first true Washington weekend in 3 years. And now I'd like each of you to look to the left and look to the right and make contact with the person across the table. This may be your future colleague or editor. Make the most of these connections. You've told amazing stories in video, in print, and online. I also want to put a plug in for your field notes, your reporter's notebook, or the story behind the story. If you have not yet read these, those of you who are not reporting fellows, please do. You've reported on global health, food insecurity and water shortages, indigenous rights and the rights of women, the search for identity, migration and refugees, and the war in Ukraine. There is no denying you have witnessed the impact of COVID on all of us, and especially on the most vulnerable. You've seen the mental health crisis on college campuses and in destinations far and wide where you have done your reporting. Every year, I share with reporting fellows a few cardinal principles, things like be persistent, get the facts straight, seek multiple points of view, embrace diversity, keep digging, do not shy away from paradox and complexity, surprise us. But this year, as we are still wrestling with the impact of COVID, there is one principle that matters most: care deeply. Show your readers or viewers why they need to care about your story. Care for your colleagues, care for your sources, care for each other. Kadia Goba, our 2018 Pulitzer Center Reporting Fellow from Hunter College, and tonight's speaker, did just that, telling the story of a mother of 5 in Sierra Leone who worked to build a mountainside after a devastating landslide. Kadia went on to cover Congress and politics here in Washington for Axios and BuzzFeed, and she has recently joined Semafor. Kadia is not only caring, but also one of the busiest people I know. She has boundless energy and a great laugh, and I'll let her tell you about that journalism journey. It is my great pleasure to welcome Kadia.
Hi. So I hate public speaking, so bear with me. See, I don't even know where the mics go. As Kem introduced me, my name is Kadia Goba. I am with Semafor. It's a new global outlet launching this fall, or actually this month. I expect all of you to sign up to my newsletter, Principles. Shameless plug. No, but seriously, I was a 2018 Pulitzer Fellow. I pitched this weird story to my then professor at Hunter College. At the time, I was covering politics in Brooklyn, and I thought I was gonna go to Sierra Leone and just like upend the political environment and make them understand how important the environment was. And he kind of told me to you should probably not or lower your expectations. Anyway, we came to the conclusion that I would approach this in, we would use solutions journalism. I'd never heard of it, but it turned out to be a very advantageous and it worked out well for the reporting piece that I did. So I go there, and it is the absolute most grueling experience of my life. I was there for a month. It was hot. As a reporter, you depend on all of your electronics, and the president at the time was playing with the electricity. He was negotiating with the electricity. So, but I was prepared for it. And I came home and gave my story to Kem, and it was grueling, and probably my best or fondest experience or reporting journey while I was in college. I learned so much, and I hope all of you have the same experience that I have. Shortly after, because I was already reporting, I was able to get a job on the local level I went back to my political roots, and before long, BuzzFeed pulled me to cover Congress in national politics, which was like a dream for anyone coming from New York City. It was terrific. I thought, oh, wow, I was really lucky to actually have this experience. And then the pandemic hit. And that became, one of the hardest things to report on national politics when you're covering the Hill and trying to do so. And there are like no politicians actually or lawmakers in the building. It's really, really difficult. So the whole newsroom kind of pivoted, you kind of adjusted. You just have to be fragile in this industry. So, dealing with the heat in Sierra Leone, West Africa, to like a global pandemic was sort of an interesting pathway into reporting, but here we are. Just when I thought everything would calm down, I was in the Capitol when January 6th happened, well, on January 6th. So that was another, tumultuous. I feel like I'm doing all doom here, but the point is that, it was a passion of mine, and it still is a passion of mine. And one of the key takeaways that I've had throughout this entire time is just, if you're the hardest worker in the room, you're gonna get the nugget. If you endure the heat and find creative ways to charge your phone, you'll get the story out. And if you duck under the seat and pay attention to Capitol Police during the insurrection, you'll be able to endure, rioters coming into your job. It is not the easiest career or job, I would say, especially my traverse through all of this, but I wouldn't change it or, I wouldn't do anything else. I am only 4 years into this, and it has been both the most exciting, lovable thing that I could have ever thought of. And this is someone coming from a second career. I was a sales rep for many years in the fashion industry. But it is also the scariest thing that I've experienced, whether it's, getting those readbacks from an editor, when you thought you put that story, when you thought you aced that story and then you have all these red lines from your editor, or, missing a scoop because you called someone else rather than another person. It's a fickle but super interesting career, and I just hope all of you take advantage of it, suck it up, have fun, enjoy the ride, be able to come up here and tell everybody what you experienced, and yeah, have fun.
I hope you've enjoyed our meal tonight and the weekend celebration in general. My name is Libby Moller, and Thank you, guys. Ooh, okay. My name is Libby Moller, and I am the editorial coordinator for the Reporting Fellowship program here at the Pulitzer Center. The fellows in the room may know me as the person constantly at the top of their email inbox. That'll be the last time I make that joke, I promise. And as my teammates have already expressed tonight, I am truly, truly overjoyed to be here in person with all of you tonight, and I cannot wait for our next 2 days of fantastic presentations. I am also honored to be introducing our next speaker for tonight. Azmat Khan is an award-winning investigative reporter for the New York Times Magazine and the Birch Assistant Professor at Columbia Journalism School, where she also leads the Lee Center for Global Journalism. Amidst all of these roles, we're so pleased to have Azmat as a member of our Pulitzer Center Board of Directors. Her investigations have won more than a dozen awards, including 2 National Magazine Awards, 2 Overseas Press Club Awards, the Polk Award, and the Hillman Prize. Most recently, she was honored with the 2022 Pulitzer Prize in International Reporting for her project, The Civilian Casualty Files, a years-long New York Times investigation that exposed the vast civilian toll of US-led airstrikes in Iraq, Syria, and Afghanistan. All of that said, it is now my pleasure to welcome Azmat to the podium.
Thank you so much, and thank you, Libby, for that very kind introduction. It is such a pleasure to meet all of you. I've had a chance to talk to some of you at the dinner table, some of you out at the reception, and I can't tell you how invigorating it is to hear so many people coming to this from so many different paths. Some of you are academics, some of you are doctors, some of you are journalists and have known you've wanted to be journalists for a long time, and others have a very different path. And so I wanted to just take a little bit of time to just tell you a little bit about my own path as an example of just how unexpected a lot of journalism can be and where you might be able to look for things that might inspire you and things that might help you as you go forward. I actually did not know that I wanted to be a journalist. I had studied political science in undergrad. I was in a women's studies master's program, and I was writing my thesis. It was like this thick. And one night I realized, like, oh my gosh, like 3 people are going to read this. That's so depressing. Like, I can't have this future. And, I cared about uncovering injustice. I had something that moved me, and I thought that maybe academia was the process through which I would pursue that. And I thought, well, why don't I just try journalism? And I moved back to my hometown, and I interned at the NBC affiliate where I grew up, and I made this terrible reel. This was 2008, and Michigan was a battleground state at that time. And I took that reel of some of this like election-related stuff, and I moved to Pakistan, which is like where I wanted to go. I didn't know that I wanted to be a journalist necessarily, but I was just so fascinated by what was happening in the country. There was this massive lawyers movement at the time to essentially reinstate a deposed Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. That sounds really convoluted and weird, but it was a massive protest, and like people were in the streets, and it was so fascinating. There was an escalating drone campaign in the tribal areas of Pakistan. And, Benazir Bhutto, unfortunately, had just been assassinated. There were so many things happening, and I really, really wanted to spend time in the country, and journalism was one way into that. And so I pitched myself backwards to Pakistani TV channels, and I said, look, whoever is elected in the United States, it's going to matter a lot for you. I know you're going to be doing election coverage. Let me help you produce that. And so I went to all these Urdu channels, and I got a job producing, and I was producing all of these segments, and the TV channel that I was working at launched an English channel, and I started reporting for them. And it was incredible. It was just tons of maybe there were like 2 uplifting stories the entire year that I was based in Pakistan, and it was like, goats escape in this market and let's watch the pandemonium. But a lot of it was just really, really tough stuff to process. But it was meaningful and important, and I grew to really love it. And about 9 months into being there, I started getting phone calls from somebody claiming to be related to this Pakistani Taliban leader, saying, we're gonna kill you in 20 days, and you're the daughter of an Englishman. I'm not. I don't know where they got that from. But they were like just these very weird death threats that I was getting. And, I would get them like every day, and they'd be like, we're going to kill you in 15 days. We're gonna kill you, the next day they'd call, they'd be like, we're gonna kill you in 14. The next day they'd be like 10. And I'd be like, you skipped a few days. It was just a terrible ordeal. And, I wound up having to leave the country. And eventually wound up at the PBS series Frontline, where I was like a lowly digital research assistant, and just fell in love with investigative journalism and got to meet incredible people and was doing things that are, not very glossy in the beginning. It was a lot of like editing long interview transcripts, but I got really into like digital journalism. I got really into deep research. And then because I was like editing these transcripts, I was reading all of these Q&As that these great investigative reporters were doing, like the uncut versions of how they do interviews, and getting to like look at the behind the scenes of a lot of this reporting. And it was just, it was something I was so addicted to, and I knew I wanted to be out in the field. I wanted to be out doing global reporting, but it was a tough path to really, transition from a digital job into that. And so, I embarked on this strange path in which, I worked my way up to being a producer. I moved institutions. I finally, it like took years, but I wound up on an investigations team that allowed me to do the kind of stories that I had always wanted to do, that I've been preparing for so long to do. And that's been like the basis of a lot of my recent work, is looking at accountability in war, looking at American claims that the military makes about its wars, and trying to fact check that on the ground. And if you'd told me even 10 years ago that, hey, in 10 years you're going to do this thing, I would not have believed you. And not just because I didn't think it was possible, but I don't think I knew that would necessarily be the path. And I think it's something that's so exciting for all of you, is that in 10 years or in however long, you could be doing something that is radically different than what you're doing now, or is a version of journalism that is not a place you necessarily expected, is not something you expected or necessarily planned out. And I'd encourage you to look for these things, especially because so many of you that I've been talking to and meeting are, you're fresh out of undergrad, or you're still in, a lot of you are in undergrad, and I think that there's just so much potential for you to take these opportunities that you're finding and to look for ways of testing yourself and challenging yourself and trying new things. But if I were to just isolate a few things that I think are so important, one is to just get local wherever you are. It could be your own backyard. It could be the hometown you're in. I was just talking to Jordan, I think, from South Dakota about, what she found in her own backyard, looking at the indigenous history there. When she started to examine, it came from a different question. It came from a question of, what is critical race theory? Are they even teaching it in these schools? And she found herself in a very different place. And that different place was, we don't really even teach that indigenous history here in our schools. And I think getting local, whether you're here, whether you're traveling abroad, that means, when I go to places like Afghanistan, or if I go to places like Iraq, there can often be Western reporters who primarily engage with and interact with other Western reporters. And sometimes there are really good reasons for that. It's about safety. It's about prioritizing, where you live, and, the security protocols you're bound to, so you wind up sometimes in a place where also other people with these same security protocols are supposed to be staying, but oftentimes it's really isolating. You wind up not learning the language. You wind up having local friends who are only ones that are translators or people who speak English. And wherever you are, whatever you're doing, it's so important to get local, to get to know a place intimately, to immerse yourself in it. wherever you are. I think that's pivotal. I think that you should look for opportunities to integrate other skills, other interests that you've had. It's not always obvious, like links to history or knowing exactly, some of these more complicated histories of the places you live in, that they're necessarily going to make their ways into stories. You might have grand ambitions for that and they'll get cut, right, in an edit. But I think having that context is still so important. It informs every word you write. I think that figuring out what moves you, what drives you is so, so important. So try a bunch of different things. For me, like, investigative journalism is so important. I don't think I could report on civilian casualties and just tell narrative stories and do magazine reporting in which I follow characters and I tell these stories, because I think I would find it too depressing to only do that. I think there's something that investigative journalism personally gives me that allows me to feel these little wins, right? To figure something out. And, I knew that what was driving me was this understanding of, well, we don't know the true costs of our wars. Can I contribute to an understanding of that? It doesn't have to be, a world-changing understanding that you arrive to, but it's something that you feel is a contribution, whether that's one small community or whether that's a country in which you're looking at a specific issue. But figure out what moves you and drives you and find a way to meld that with whatever it is that you're doing to incorporate it where you can. And I would also tell you to trust your instincts. I was just talking to Michael next to me on the table sort of about, when you are looking for something that you might want to report on and you're seeking out advice from others, how helpful it can often be to really understand what your gut reactions and feelings are when you're looking into something, and to weigh that when somebody else is talking to you about advice for something that you're doing, is to not lose sight of that, because there's always something that drew you to what it is you're doing in the first place, what set you on this path. So anyway, I really would love to talk to more of you. I think that what you're doing is so exciting. I think that the paths ahead of you are so exciting, and I just can't wait to see what you do. It's been wonderful getting to talk to you, and I can't wait to chat with you more. So thanks so much.
Thank you, Azmat. That was wonderful. It's so inspiring to hear you and all the work that you've done. And thank you, Kadia. That was spectacular. I remember I met Kadia 4 years ago, I think at our house the first time, and she was talking a mile a minute about the stuff that she was working on, and I said, that woman is going places. and she has. I don't want to keep you long. We've had a long day, afternoon. We had wonderful presentations. We got lots more tomorrow and Sunday. It's so amazing to hear all the work that you've done, all of you, all over the world and in this country. I always, Kem and I think that this is our like in some ways our favorite weekend of the year. I'm so glad it's in person again. Because we get to hear what you all are doing, and you can't spend time hearing your projects and your excitement about it, your passion for it, the strength of the reporting, your commitment, and not feel reassured about the future, not just of journalism, but the future of our country. And I would echo Azmat in saying that there's really, I think there's nothing better than journalism. I mean, I've been at it for almost 50 years now, and I feel like that every day, every week, every month, that over all those many years, I've had the opportunity to pursue stories that I was interested in, subjects that I was interested in. I often think like I feel like an archaeologist sometimes. I can look back and I can say, well, there was a time in the 1970s when I knew a lot about nuclear energy, because I did a big project for the year on nuclear waste and the future of nuclear power in this country. There was a time when I knew a lot about defense contract fraud in the 1980s, and I knew a lot about China emerging from in the 1990s and the early 2000s, or South Africa coming out of apartheid. And I don't know as much about any of those topics today as I did when I was working on them, but I had the opportunity, because I was a journalist, to go after the things that I was seized with at the moment. And there are very few jobs, professions, where you have that opportunity. And it doesn't matter whether you're at a small town paper, a regional paper, a nonprofit startup, or an international colossus, that those are the choices you get to make wherever you are, to go after interesting stories that matter to people. And I know from listening to the presentations today, hearing about the stories, it probably doesn't surprise you to know that, married to Kem, I actually know a lot about your projects, because I get real-time updates every morning and every night. Whenever anything happens to any of you, Kem is totally on it and committed to it, as are Libby and Ann and Michaela, Holly, and everybody else at the Pulitzer Center. I mean, I think the one thing I hope you know is that we at the Pulitzer Center, we are committed to you all, because we see you as the future, and we care a lot about you, and we appreciate your commitment, your passion for this work. Really excited about hearing about the rest of the projects tomorrow. I hope you do this scavenger hunt, take it seriously. Kem and Libby and the others have put together like 550 questions along the way. You're going to see a lot of fun things. We did it with our granddaughters last weekend. It's a really great walk. The weather's going to be good tomorrow. So I'm looking forward to seeing you at Nick's tomorrow night on the Georgetown waterfront and hearing about everything that you've seen. But thank you all, and look forward to the rest of the weekend.